So my name is Dan Nelson. I was born in Sicily, grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and ended up going to high school in Boise at Centennial High School. After I graduated, I enlisted in the military. After a short indistinguished or undistinguished career of getting in trouble and being an idiot as a young Marine, basically got kicked out and then decided I had to unscrew my life. It worked out for me. I was very lucky. Had a lot of people reach out and offer support, and ended up going to a junior college in Arizona for a year, playing football there, and I got some scholarship offers from bigger schools, and I was picked up by UCLA, where I spent 3 years there. I was very lucky. It was an amazing experience, especially coming from a place where I had screwed so much stuff up in my life, even in my young life at that point. To have that opportunity to have an education at a place like that and play ball at that level. And I was super lucky to be a team captain for 2 of those 3 years. During that time, my friends that I had joined the Marines with that had done the right things as junior enlisted Marines were being deployed. So the Iraq War started. A lot of them were in the invasion. A lot of them start getting hurt, banged up, and having a lot of different issues. And for me, basically living my childhood dream of playing big time college football, there was obviously a cosmic imbalance there, right? It's really challenging to kind of express what that feels like, but I guess to dumb it down completely, it'd just be guilt, because I knew that I was being, I had all these amazing opportunities because I'd done the wrong things, and meanwhile the guys that did the right things, were getting hurt. So I made the decision at that point that after college I was going to go back into the military. I don't think when you make those choices or have missteps in your youth or any time in your life that you ever really are able to truly make up for something. But that was definitely my intent. I wanted to make up and serve at the highest capacity that I could serve. And magically, after my period of, being a dumbass 18-year-old that made these terrible choices, I don't know, everything became a lot more clear to me, and I became basically like a monk, where I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and nothing was going to get my way of doing it. So my goal at first was I was going to enlist in the Army with an 18 X-ray contract, which is a Special Forces contract. And for those who don't know, Army Special Forces are Green Berets. Through a even weirder turn, a serendipitous turn, I was contacted by an Army colonel who somehow, with a stack of waivers like this thick, probably because we were at the height of the Iraq War or just before the height of the Iraq War at that point, got me into a officer training program. So somehow after college I commissioned. So I was a second lieutenant, started my Army career there, infantry school, ranger school, airborne school, all that stuff. And then went immediately to my first unit, which was 2505 of the 82nd, 82nd Airborne Division. So I was quite pleased to be a young paratrooper, and within 1 month of being at Fort Bragg, where the 82nd lives, I was deployed to Iraq to meet my unit downrange. So pretty soon after the pipeline, I got thrown into my first deployment, and there's certainly ups and downs of that, but yeah, it was a learning experience, in a bunch of different ways. And my God, I learned all the things that, looking back at it now, 10 years removed, more than 10 years removed, just all the stupid mistakes that I had made as a leader. Everyone makes stupid personal mistakes, but being in charge of people and that's a different level of regret, I guess. So moving forward from that, I found what I felt was my calling. I loved my job. I loved deploying. I loved being able to get to do my job. And I knew what I wanted to do. I still wanted to be a Special Forces officer. I wanted to become a Green Beret. So in 2011, I made the switch over to the Special Forces Regiment. I was very lucky to be, get through the pipeline relatively unscathed of SFAS, which is Special Forces Assessment and Selection, the Q course, or Special Forces Qualification course. And then I started to lose myself a little bit during this time period, and because my professional desires, I guess if you call it that, were definitely crossed over into my personal life. So for better or for worse, and I think a lot of first responders and military guys and women might be like this, but I identified with my job. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but you can start to lose some other things. So there's a cost in relationships with your loved ones. I'd been divorced at that point. And there was a lot of challenges that made me want some more balance in my life, and I thought that balance would come from coming back to Idaho and serving my community in a different capacity. So I was lucky and got to go to 19th Special Forces Group, which is out of Utah. It's a National Guard Special Forces Group, and yes, they exist. There's 19th and 20th, and I was in 1st Battalion 19th. And I decided I want to be a cop. So I cast a wide net. I didn't have any idea. In fact, when I was a kid, I pretty much was on the opposite side of all things law enforcement. Certainly got my fair share of trouble and bad decisions. But so everywhere, I applied to everywhere from like Fruitland PD to LAPD, Houston, Albuquerque. And I ended up having some choices, and I chose to be an Idaho State Trooper here. So I work for ISP. I had a really great experience with some great people in both, post and ATC and all that stuff. And I enjoyed the hell out of it, mostly because of the people. The guys on patrol were amazing. I had amazing supervisors at that time, first line supervisors that gave me an enormous amount of tutelage and actually how like policing should work. And I was lucky enough to eventually become the training specialist of ISP, so I got to run a couple of their academies, and that's a passion of mine. But where I started my law enforcement career, and just super lucky, I liked working on the DUI team, I liked working on the drug and criminal interdiction team, had those opportunities as like a really young, inexperienced cop. It was very good for me. And then I came out and started my career in law enforcement thinking that I would have a balance with the military being like the part-time gig and law enforcement being the full-time gig, and it did not end up that way. So the tempo of deployments for my part-time gig was high enough that it created a lot of issues for me, just for my family. Like at that point I got remarried to my wife, and she's been through a lot, and then we start talking about like starting a family, and I was just gone all the time. I would go right from a deployment, come back here and jump right into work with ISP, and it got to be a bit much. So I decided in 2016 that I was going to leave ISP, and not for any negative reason, great organization, but just because I figured if I was going to do, instead of half-assing both things, I needed to whole-ass something, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I felt called to be in active duty in the military. So pretty much immediately upon that, I started PMT, or pre-mission training, with my unit. Based out of Utah, but we did our training kind of several locations over the country, typical PMT schedule. And then we were attached to 2nd Battalion 7th Group, 7th Special Forces Group, which is out of Eglin in Florida. And in April, we flew over to Afghanistan. And pretty much right, I think it was maybe the day that we were flying over there, our mission set completely changed. Not for the whole SOTF deploying there, but specifically for my team and a couple other teams. And at that point, obviously, there'd just been a presidential election, new things had come to light, and basically my team was given a unique task within Afghanistan. It was under different rules of engagement, and it was called Operation Freedom Sentinel, which is specifically a counter-ISIS fight in Afghanistan. And then again, a lot of people didn't know that ISIS is in Afghanistan, but they are. So it was a unique deployment for me. Like throughout my experience in the global war on terror, deploying places, it's always counterinsurgency, foreign internal defense, like all these things, like trying to be the nice guy. And then all of a sudden in 2017, small group of team guys, like 12-man ODA basically, with some infantry uplift and attachments, and our a couple companies worth of our partner force, the Afghani Commandos, were sent to a place in southern Nangarhar. Our valley was called Pekka Valley, in a counter ISIS fight. And so, like I said, my first time in my GWOT career, it was a force-on-force deal. Like the civilians streamed out of there, and the only guys that were in the valley were there to fight. And it was also unique because whereas other deployments, like Taliban, Iraqis, they're fighting because there's an invader. Well, in this case, the ISIS dudes that we were fighting there, they weren't Afghanis. Like they deployed there as well. So we both came from all over the world in this kind of weird little mishmash in a valley about the size of the Treasure Valley, to have it out, and we did. And it was actually a really lucky, enormously amazing, unique opportunity, highlighted by tragedies, as not all, but many deployments are. But so in that respect, we're not special. I do think that most people in their entire careers don't ever have an opportunity to immerse themselves in that. It wasn't like the normal, kind of like SF deployment where, you'd spend 4 to 6 months someplace and you do, 5 to 10 period of darkness raids or whatever. It was total immersion in the valley. We initially went down there thinking we were going to spend 5 days. And that first trip down there, we ended up spending over 30 days. Guys getting shot in the dome with a Dragunov sniper rifle and living, like my guys. Having it like clockwork where ISIS would attack you in the morning. And then we'd have this kind of gentleman's lunch where everyone stopped shooting each other for a while. And then there would be an afternoon firefight. So there's morning firefight, afternoon firefight, or evening firefight, and then that's the way it worked. And we killed a lot of them. But that didn't seem to deter them necessarily. Made some big pushes. There was another, our sister team that replaced us, ended up having a horrific experience when one of the Afghani commandos turned his gun on some of their infantry uplift. These kids from the 101st Airborne Division that were attached to us to provide us security. So the Afghani commando, killed them. And that was a hard experience for everybody involved, and still is. And well, so that was in June, and then July and August things started to really kind of. There was a certain part, I don't remember exactly when, but a lot of my memories are mixed, but towards the end of July, luck started to run out, I guess, so like instead of the ticks where we'd come away relatively unscathed, ticks are like troops in contact, which firefight. It just felt like a noticeable change, and then we were tasked to do a clearance operation in an adjacent valley called Momon Valley. And even though we were assigned to take Pekka, and we did take we took the entire valley, and we're quite proud of that. And it took the two teams, 3 months to do it. But then we're asked to do a clearance operation in Momon Valley, and that started on August 16th, 2017 at about 5 in the morning, local time there in Afghanistan. And within the first 10 minutes, we started taking fire, indirect fire, which mortars, direct fire, pretty effective sniper fire, things like that. That type of being pinned down, using close air support, utilizing our mortars, utilizing our gun trucks when we could have the gun trucks support us. It was great, but most of the assault force was all dismounted. So ticks on and off all during the day. And then it started to get to be the evening, and that's not a valley where you just hang out in a unsecured space at night. So there was one structure that was actually an old mosque. It was abandoned. The whole valley was abandoned, except for, Daesh or whatever. Anyway, there was one reinforced concrete structure that used to be a mosque, and we were being bracketed by enemy mortar fire. Bracketed means they fire over you, they fire shorter than you, they fire longer than you, shorter than you, longer than you, shorter than you. And it started getting extremely close, which was unique. Usually we could maneuver fast enough, and their gunners weren't that good all the time. This time it seemed exceptionally effective. Anyway, whatever I say from here on out is going to sound like an excuse. So, bottom line is, I was in charge of every American and partner force in that valley for that operation. And my decision was to occupy that mosque that stood, because of a lot of different reasons, but it doesn't really matter. We cleared that building, and we were there for about 20 minutes. And there was some of our partner force in the building, and there was myself and a guy named Aaron Butler. Staff Sergeant Aaron Butler was a 27-year-old from Monticello, Utah. He was a Green Beret, and honestly, he, like, even in a team like full of meat eaters, he made us all look like vegans. Like, he just was that type of dude that stood out in everything he did, particularly in combat situations. To be fair, he and I weren't best friends. I was the commander of the ODA. He was a junior Charlie, which is a demolition sergeant. And he was super smart and super physical. He's a 4-time state wrestling champion in Utah. He also was the youngest guy on the team. Anyway, so there was a massive explosion in the building. And definitely been blown up before, but that was totally different. I remember the beginning of the explosion. I remember I had just said some words to Butler about what I wanted him to do, and I'm sure I wasn't very polite. I remember turning around and then seeing that kind of dust move, which, like, to me, everyone has their own thing, what they see. Like in the explosion, the first thing I always see is that slow motion push, and that's what I saw. I don't know how from there, because it was basically like a one corner fed door in this large concrete building, and it wasn't a straight line from where I was standing to where that door was, but ended up being kind of waking up on my stomach halfway in and out of that door. Couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything for a while, but the first thing I heard is a voice asking for help. I couldn't see who it was. I know all my guys, and I know what their voices sound like. And I know what their voices sound like, even when they're amped up, when they're stressed, when they're trying not to sound amped up. This didn't sound like any of those. I didn't honestly recognize whose voice it was. Anyway, I started kind of working my way back, and I thought at first, because my right side hurt so bad, I thought that my leg and arm were gone, or any combination of those. I just kind of had that thought, but started moving through, and it's completely like brown out, dusty inside this building. I have no idea what the fuck just happened, and just kind of going towards the voice that's asking for help, and found a body. Long story short, it was there was a lot of bodies, and then the voice kept going though, so I went toward the voice, and this is all happening in a matter of seconds, not minutes, probably like it sounds. Anyway, I got to the voice, and it was Aaron Butler, and I remember flashes of things from there, but I guess I'll just say, um, you know, I spent his last moments with him. Um, I took his last words, and it seems really unfair because I'm sure if he could choose someone to give his last words to, it wouldn't be me. Um, and then, you know, got him out of the building, and the 18 Deltas, or the medics, they started working on him. It didn't, like, I knew in the manner in which he said his final words, and kind of just, I knew he was gone, but it didn't click because I don't know why. But um, right after the explosion, we're obviously really vulnerable. The enemy knows that. It was a coordinated ambush. So then that massive explosion kicked off like kind of a U-shaped ambush. So 31 Americans needed to be medevaced. Aaron was dead, and we still had to kind of figure it out and fight it out. So there's some guys there that stepped up amazingly to the plate and coordinated all kinds of shit. Close air support, the medevacs. It took a while for us to get to a point, safety-wise, with the enemy situation where we could bring the birds in, and then we didn't have enough space on all of them because it's the number of casualties that we had. So and it's kind of hard for me to tell you because I don't remember a lot of these things firsthand. I've since, 3 years removed, talked to the guys, and it's hard for me to distinguish now what my memories are of a lot of what happened after, and what I've seen on, like, helmet cam footage and from the pilots, and the video from the birds, and it's all this shit. But I do remember some of their guys' faces, and these are guys that, they're bare-chested freedom fighters. They're like, kind of a joke, but kind of not. Like, they were all legit dudes that were all totally down to clown, and we all knew exactly why we were there. There's no justice to it. Aaron was probably the most physically talented of everybody on the team. He was the youngest, and if not the bravest, then certainly among the bravest. And so, yeah, I mean, shit. It makes no sense. I don't know how many TBIs I've had previous to that, including some moderate ones, which, if you know the scale of, moderate and or severe, you're a vegetable. Unfortunately, or whatever, I always bounce back from brain injuries, so much so that I didn't really believe in them. I thought it was kind of overhyped up, and to be honest, I also felt that way about PTSD, because I figured I'd done these deployments, seen whatever as a cop, I've gotten into these situations, and I just never thought that I'd have a problem with it, which sounds, I don't know what type of person that makes me. But then all of a sudden, this all happens, and my brain gets messed up, and my speech is immediately affected, my balance is affected, I don't sleep. Anyway, I got medevaced out. I stayed in the hospital for a while in Afghanistan. Eventually got the push to Germany, then to Walter Reed, and then I stayed at Walter Reed for about 8 months. And I don't know what to say about that experience except for it was shitty, and I'm not pointing the finger at them necessarily, them being Walter Reed or the DoD or Army or whatever. There's some really great people everywhere. It just, I had no concept of how I was, I guess. So, yeah, what a it was just really challenging time, and I thought that was the worst of it, and I just needed to get out of there. I was sent home on community care orders to receive, continued medical care here in Boise while I would be home. Uh, when I was blown up on August 16th, 2017, my wife was home with our 1-year-old, and she was 8 months pregnant. So she met me in Walter Reed and had my second son on the floor beneath where I was in. So she's a G and she deserves some sort of medal or something. But I tell you that because you'd think like, hey, like you survived this really unique deployment. You survived this thing that unfortunately no one else did in building. And you're lucky enough to be home with your badass wife and your, 1-year-old, and now your newborn. And, I wasn't. I don't know if it's because I had started really hitting the opioids hard, which is something I never did. And now I empathize with like looking back at like the dudes, I hooked before that were like, trafficking heroin or whatever, and they tell me the story about how they whatever had this injury and started with Percocets and oxys and stuff, and here we are, man. And so that was me, and it's really embarrassing to look back now, but the reason why I'm really passionate about helping veterans that are dealing with TBIs, dealing with substance use disorder, dealing with PTSD, or any combination of those, is, well, I'd like to say like because I did, but I'm certainly not coming from a place where I could tell anyone what to do, because I'm still there, like I've gotten a hell of a lot better. I've been really lucky with some of the treatment facilities and places and people that have helped me along the way. But bottom line is that nothing changes until you want it to change. And not saying it's like as easy as saying like, you know what, today I'm gonna grab my bootstraps and get better. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a component of that, at least for me. And I don't know. There's some things I know I'm still not the same. Like cognitively, I've improved enormously since the injury. I'm incredibly thankful for that because I always kind of anticipated like losing an arm or a leg or something like that in the deployments. But I never actually thought of like not being able to read to my kids. Or not being able to drive them or be trusted to watch them on my own. And that was not something I mentally prepared for. And, choices addicts make are weird, man. Constantly balancing things like, hey, I can take these pills, but I only take them at night, so it's cool. And then it's like, well, now I'm taking them in the afternoon, but it's later afternoon, so it's okay. I'm not taking them in the morning. And then it's like, well, I'm not doing this to get high. This is just for my pain management. And if I'm going to get up off my ass and do something like a normal person in the morning, then, well, obviously I'm going to have to start taking them in the morning. And then you just kind of, next thing you know, you're taking 18 Percocets a day, and I don't even know, it was a deal, and it was a real struggle to kind of break free of that. That's just one little minor thing. But I feel like I'm on the right path. I was helped out by Mission 43, which is a program that I help run now. At the time, Mission 43 came to me by accident, really through my wife, because I wasn't interested in doing anything. And it seems like there's always, not always, but oftentimes there's a spouse behind a lot of these recovery stories. A spouse, a loved one, a friend, whatever it is that push that even when guys are, ready to give up, they are almost forcefully not allowed to. And I'm not gonna lie, she just straight up yeah, she straight up just G'd me and put me in my places whenever I needed it, which was hard. But she connected me with Mission 43, and unbeknownst to me, there was a kind of a coalition of nonprofit organizations, and specifically Mission 43, that started pushing me and kind of started this campaign of all these guys that I had known to hit me up about specifically doing this treatment called hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT. Mission 43 enabled me to get there. I had no desire to start it. It sounded like snake oil to me or whatever else, and I just wasn't interested in another treatment modality that I felt was going to be useless. Long story short, my wife devoted me and made me go, and I'm really extremely thankful that she did. I went to Idaho Hyperbarics in Pocatello, and I know it sounds crazy, and I'm not here to sell you or anybody that's watching this HBOT, but if you are struggling, I 100%, I'm telling you, it's not going to hurt anything. It's only going to help. It's pressure, it's time, it's oxygen. It's used in every first world country, besides the United States. And I think the only reason why it's not used more by the, whatever you want to call it, the regular medical places here, is because HBOT's not patentable. It's oxygen and pressure and time. So I'm a big proponent of that. I was also helped out by Operation Mend, which is a program out of UCLA. And I was helped out by some particular individuals at the Boise VA hospital, honestly, some really great counselors. So mostly, I would like to say I was helped out by people in the veteran community here and by first responders here, friends like Kevin Holtree that I reconnected with, and we found a lot of strength and still do find a lot of strength in working with each other. I could go on my list of friends and family that have helped me and supported me, but I also know that not everybody has that type of network, and that makes, what you guys are doing right now, this connection between first responders, the connection between the military, developing that community, because you never know when it's your turn to reach out for help or when it's your turn to give somebody a hand when they need it. So now it's my turn for that. And I hope that whoever needs help within this community reaches out to somebody, and I hope it's me at Mission 43. If it's not, I hope it's somebody. I think, say the world needs more humanitarians than it does warriors, whatever, which is probably true, but it can have none of the former without the latter, and that's what everyone in these circles are. And not everyone's cut from the same cloth, and they don't have to be, but everyone is, we all, first responders, military, share a common bond of public service. And being a public servant means that you automatically put the safety of the public above your own. That's the contract, right? And I just thank all you guys for still doing it. I wish I was still doing it too. But now that I can't, I'll just be the giant baby waving you on and helping you guys out when you need a hand. So reach out to me on Mission 43 anytime you need help.